Welcome to the Speak by Design podcast, where we study personal style, message structure, and message strategy so you can become a consistently compelling force. Let's dig in. In preparing for today's lesson on managing up, I wanted to remind you all that everything we've been talking about in these lessons is with the intention of helping you shorten your runway, accelerate your career faster, take on greater responsibility, and lead more people at a faster rate. This topic is so appreciated by your supervisor. If you have a supervisor or a skip level supervisor, I want you to think about both of those audiences for this topic. If you are a founder of a business, an owner of a business, or you're the CEO of a business, this may not apply to you right now because I don't want you to apply this to your board of directors or to a very important customer. We're going to save that as a manage across topic. Where I think a CEO could use this is these are helpful tips to give your direct reports, your leadership team. And I've got 13 tips I'm going to share today. So for managing up, think of your supervisor or skip level supervisor. And that is somebody, that could be someone you've known for years. That could be a new boss that is coming onto the scene for you. So tip number one is be assertive. And this is counterintuitive because you're not wanting to step on toes. You don't want to look like you're overreaching. And it's those mindsets that get in the way of coming across assertive. And then you go into meetings as though you're asking for approval, asking for the answer. You're confused, you're overwhelmed, and that is incredibly irritating to your supervisor. Your boss wants to hear you come in with the answer or a suggestion or at least a few options that you are considering. You might want to go back to lesson 22 on assertive communication. In that lesson, we talk about how to be assertive in your body language, your voice, your message structure, and in how you handle questions. For the part about structuring messages, don't forget the framework, situation, complication, resolution. That's a really powerful way to structure your ideas to your supervisor. You come in, you give a bit of context with the situation, and that should always be the known situation from your boss's perspective. Then the complication. What's the news? What's extra significant or pressured about the situation? And that could be a recent piece of bad news you need to share. And then the resolution that you are suggesting and promoting. If you don't have one resolution, offer a couple or even 3 options you're considering. And let your leader then make a selection or endorse your recommendation. Or start challenging your recommendation and be comfortable handling those questions. That's assertive communication, coming in with a proposed answer or options. And doing it preemptively without them having to ask all the time. What are you working on? How's it going? Do they have to ask you that? Could you come in and say, let me tell you how it's going? That is more assertive. That is greatly appreciated. What if the president of the country had to go in and ask, what are you working on? How's it going? No, they're being briefed all the time with updates and recommendations and new strategies that the leaders of those functional areas are promoting. That's the most efficient way to update your boss, is to come in with updates and recommendations. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2. Give feedback to your boss. Now you might say, no, they didn't ask. I'm not going to offer feedback. Remember, feedback doesn't have to be negative. You could come into your leader's office and say something like this, and it doesn't have to be a physical office. It could be calling them, leaving a voicemail, or waiting for the next one-on-one virtual meeting you have. And you share something like this. Mike, I have to tell you, when we were in that meeting last week and you said X, Y, and Z, that changed the temperature of the room. The conversation went in a much more productive manner. I really appreciated how you frame that. I'm going to do that next time. Now you're telling your boss how they are leading by example, how they are mentoring you, how what they're doing is having an impact on your key stakeholder, which might be a customer, might be another senior leader, stakeholder that you all work with. Helping give your leader feedback about what is working is going to accelerate the trust and bond and friendship between you. And they need that. It is not appropriate if you're new to working with this leader to come in with criticism and lots of ideas for how they could be a stronger leader. Wait till you have a relationship in place and you've built enough social capital and trust where they are asking you for that feedback. It will happen. Third tip, ask questions. So this might feel like, oh, I shouldn't be asking this question. It's not a good question. It's a dumb question. I should already know this. Don't worry about asking a question you should already know. That's not going to hurt. And it's going to help highlight to the leader that they left out information or that it was unclear. That's really good for your leader to know. Here's an example of questions to ask. When is this due? Do you have an example that you have in mind of a time we've done this before? Do you have a template that I could use to save me time? Were you envisioning this to be 5 pages or 20 pages? Who is the audience? What are they worried about? How do you like me to format this? Do you want it in story form or more in bullets? Do you want prose? Do you want numbered items? All of those types of questions show that you care about making your first draft or your first deliverable be as close as the best version as possible. Leaders love that. They want to hear those questions. Now, if they look frustrated, it is only because they're short on time and it has nothing to do with you. When you ask a question and your leader does a heavy sigh, like that, you can think you have done something wrong. You've done nothing wrong. That person is managing a lot on their plate and they're letting their hair down with you. They're comfortable enough to show you that they are struggling and they need your help. That is really a good sign that you have enough of a relationship that the person feels comfortable being real with you. And we don't want to punish our leaders when they do show their stress. Very often that's what comes back in 360-degree feedback, is that the leader doesn't manage their stress well. The problem with that is we do want leaders to be able to be real people. And if you're always holding your leader up to this unrealistic standard that they can't be short on time, they can't be impatient, they can't be overwhelmed, what are they going to think when you are confused and overwhelmed? It works both ways. And it's a beautiful friendship when it is a safe space between you both. And you can make this one of the most wonderful relationships you have. So many people say that the worst part of their day is when they speak with their boss. That's terrible. That should be the best time because you're a team. You're working on a common goal. You're there to help each other. That help philosophy is in place, where you're there to make your supervisor's life easier and they're there to make your life easier. All right, so that was tip number 3, ask questions, get some clarity. Tip number 4, read between the lines. If you're in a meeting and your leader says, well, we're going to need to make a document on that. And then strangely, the meeting ends and nobody took ownership of that task. This would be the time to reach out right after the meeting and say, Michael, I heard you mention that document needs to be built. I can send you an outline. Could we get 5 minutes tomorrow for your reactions before I take another turn on it? That is you taking the initiative and understanding that just because it wasn't assigned to you doesn't mean you can't offer to do it. Now, if your plate is immensely overflowing with other tasks and now you're jumping at the new shiny object, that is irritating. Your leader will say, no, please get your other things completed, and then you can work on this new shiny object. Use your judgment on what will be appreciated. What is always appreciated is after a meeting, if your leader was supposed to write a summary note, you take the first stab at that summary note, write a draft and send it to your leader and say, here are my notes for you to edit and forward on. You might have saved them an hour's worth of work with that effort. That is always appreciated. That's reading between the lines. Number 5, give a timeline. So when you say, I'll work on that next, can you say, I'll work on that next and have a first draft to you by tomorrow afternoon, and then have a first draft ready by tomorrow afternoon? When you add that time frame and make sure it's reasonable, something that you can keep your promise on, that calms down your leader because they get a sense of your urgency and your capacity. It also creates an expectation, and they start budgeting their time after tomorrow afternoon. They might be using their evening time to do the review. So if you are late on that timeline, you really squeeze their timing. And that's where you can let down your leader, is if you give timing and then you don't uphold it. So make sure what you give is reasonable for you. But give a timeline and you will notice their stress level drops. All right, the next one. Don't go silent for 24 hours after a task has been delegated to you. If somebody says, can you work on a document and it's due next week, don't go quiet for a week. Or don't go quiet for 3 days. Don't even go quiet for 24 hours. Instead, within 3 hours of receiving the task, summarize what you believe the task to be and use your W's. Who's it for? What is it? When, where, how, why, all the how. Put all those details that you know, then ask your questions. I guarantee you already have some questions. At the bottom of your note where you have all your W's outlined, add 3 to 5 bullets of questions. And these can be things like, do you have an example document I can model this after? Number 2, tell me more about the audience for this document. Number 3, do you prefer, and then you could have some questions about the format, the length, the types of exhibits or charts to use. Add those questions in there to give your leader some confidence that you're already putting a lot of thought into this. And that should happen within 3 hours of receiving the task. That's proper managing up. If you didn't get it to it until 5 hours later, that's okay. But the more regular and consistent you are in getting back to people after a task has been delivered within 3 hours, the greater the trust is between you and your leader. Number 7, check-ins and check-outs. When you're working for a large company that has high-stake communications or a fast-growing organization, you've got to institute check-ins and check-outs. And that's why this is a part of Agile methodologies, Six Sigma behaviors as well, is that check-in is you orienting people on what you're planning to work on that day, and then checking out at the end of the day with how well you did. Did you complete everything? Are some things moving into the next day? Helping people know what you're working on and how you're using your time at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Do these have to be live meetings? Absolutely not. An email does suffice. Now, this leads us into number 8, which I call communication preferences. Find out your leader's communication preferences. Find out your skip level leader's communication preferences too. This means, do they need lead time with pre-reads before meetings? Do they like to meet at the beginning and the end of the week, at the beginning and end of the day? Do they like email, phone, text, Slack? How do they like to be communicated with? And if they have a preferred way of being updated, a way to deliver an update to them or to problem solve with them, find that out early on. If you're meeting with a new boss or a new leader, these are great questions to ask them before you get into your working relationship, and make some notes because you will forget and fall back on your own preferences. And we want you to adapt and accommodate the preferences of your leader and your skip level leaders' communication preferences. Number 9, look for ways you can ask for more. Now, asking for more is not asking for a promotion, asking for a title change, more money. It is asking for opportunities to kick off the meeting, opportunities to chime in the middle of a presentation on certain slides. It's also looking for those opportunities where you can take mundane, routine tasks off your leader's plate so that they can elevate themselves to higher level strategic thinking versus feeling like they have to stay in the weeds. So look for that. Where is your leader overworking? Where are they spending too much time? And suggest that you help with those activities. If it's something you don't know yet, ask them to teach you so you can take it off their plate. Now, number 10 and 11 go together. So number 10 is all about speaking up. And then number 11 is about rescuing your leader in a meeting. Okay, so number 10, this part about speaking up, chiming in, never going into a meeting and being quiet for the whole meeting. It will give the impression to your leader that you don't have any confidence, you don't believe you belong in that room. Make a rule for yourself. If you come into a meeting with your leader, that you are going to speak at the beginning, somewhere in the middle, and something at the end. And making that rule for yourself helps you not become invisible in that room. What can you speak up on? If your leader presents an idea and you know there's a logical question emerging for the other side, the audience in the room, you can say, I know what you all might be wondering. Why are we doing this now? And then you can just look at your leader to see if your leader wants to answer that. So you are teeing up a question for your leader to answer, or you can ask that question and then answer it for the audience. That's a really nice way to show up. And then get feedback right after that. Ask your leader, was it okay that I spoke up? Your leader's going to say, yes, I really like that. And you helped answer a question for them and give me a break so I could drink some water. That's very helpful to them. Now, this number 11, rescuing them, comes when a question comes across about a detail that you know your leader has not studied. That is the time to rescue. Do not just watch your leader flounder. Come in and say, I have an idea on that one, and offer your suggestion, your idea. If you can tell your leader needs a second to compose himself or herself, pause the conversation and say, Mary, help us understand that question. Are you asking about X or are you asking about Y? And asking Mary to clarify her question is going to give your leader time to find the right answer, and maybe you can answer the question as well. If you have a leader who needs a lot of control, don't assume that that is true. It might look like they need control, but what they need is to know that you feel competent and confident. And you might have to say that to your leader. I'm ready. I want to give it a go. And then be comfortable if they tell you you weren't perfect. That's the only way you learn. You will say the wrong thing. We all need to expect that. That is part of the learning. You're not going to be good at everything the first time. Number 12, look at your leader with appreciation, not with a critical eye. When your leader is speaking to you and you're trying to process the information, it is very easy to start crinkling your forehead and giving a death stare. This makes the leader think you don't like what they're saying, you disagree, or you're confused. And any of those perceptions are not helpful to you. Lighten up the face, soften the face, warm it up with a softer smile. Now, I told a leader who was struggling with her CEO that she needed to soften her face, and she was greatly offended by this. I don't want you to be offended by this. How would you feel if your parent or your loved one was always looking at you with a critical eye? You would stop talking. You would stop trusting that person. It is the same with the people we work with. Soften the face. And also in front of other audiences, we can read the dynamics and relationships. If I go into a meeting and I can tell that the supervisor and the direct report don't get along, it creates a strange feeling for me as I work with them. People can smell that unhealthy dynamic between a supervisor and direct report. Now, the last one, and this comes from John Wooden, the great basketball coach, who said, no blaming, no excuses, and no complaining. That is true for you. In managing up effectively, there are going to come times where you want to commiserate with your leader. Maybe your leader is complaining. Don't join in. Help them see the good in the situation. Maybe your leader's blaming others. Don't blame. Don't join in that. Help them understand what we can control and what we can't control, and only focus on what you can control. And no excuses. We make excuses when the work is getting hard. How can we rise above that and chip away at the tasks so that we start to complete the bigger initiative? And that's the way to help your boss, your leader, and skip level leader stay resilient through big efforts. Now, can you see how if you behaved this way, it would accelerate your career? Because your leader would be able to stand up in front of a calibration committee when people are talking about who's ready for the next job, who's ready for a promotion, and they're able to say that you ask questions, give feedback, read between the lines, you are responsive and always get back to them with check-ins and checkouts and updates 3 hours after receiving a new task, and that you speak up easily in meetings, you rescue them when there are challenging questions that come across, and that there's never been an instance where you're blaming others, complaining, or making excuses. You are so good for company culture. This is why managing up is so important to all of us. Make your supervisors look good, help them be successful, and in turn, it ends up helping you. Don't do it for that reason. It will happen naturally. All right. Have a great rest of your week. You can turn around relationships as well with these tactics too. I look forward to hearing how they are working for you. In our next week's lesson, we'll move into managing across. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. If you are enjoying all of these lessons, but now you're hungering to turn all of this into skills and habits that make this work intuitive and natural so that you don't have to think about it, then you want to join Speak by Design University. That's our coaching program that gives you private coaching, group coaching with me, group training, self-paced learning, as well as exceptional networking with other people like you. This program is for managers and above, people whose careers are on fire and they're looking to hit their next level, and they want to do that sooner rather than later. Check it out at speakbydesign.com/join. That's speakbydesign.com/join, and you can start with us at the 1st of next month. We hope to see you there.